All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another video. In this video, we are going to get into starting to code with Java. So I'm going to start this video off as if we open up Netbeans from scratch and there's nothing displayed other than this screen. For you, if you did the install, you probably have, your file open from the past, but I'm just going to walk you through the process in case for whatever reason you don't know what happened to your previous files. So first we would go to open project because we basically already have a project created. Um, we'll say allow there, basically giving it access to different locations on our computer. In the example case, we basically started a project already on the desktop, so that's what I'm navigating to. Here's the one we created for VS Code, and here's the one we created using Maven on Java through Netbeans. So in this case, we're going to collect or connect to the one we created in Netbeans, but you see you can access different files other than the ones you create within NetBeans also. But we're going to work with the ones we created on the platform. As soon as I click open, you see it opens up my files over here under this projects tab. So we have projects, it's opening the files. And here is the test file that basically was created for us when we first started. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pretty much walk you through the process of creating more files through your NetBeans environment. So first, if you want to create a new file, there's this little paper with a plus icon. You would click that. Obviously, you make sure that your project is connected to the same project you're under, which we are on that. We're going to be working with Java, and we're going to be creating your standard Java class. So everything that is already pre-selected is exactly what you want. So we'll click next. This is where you're going to name your class. So remember in the lecture I was stating that your class name and your file name will be the same thing. So whatever we're typing here is going to be the class and the file name. So in this case, we're going to name it first program. And you see here, we're using camel casing in this case. When you're naming a file, you technically can name a file starting with a capital letter. It's variables that they pretty much say that you should start with the lowercase letter, but technically when it comes to files, you can also name them with capital letters. So it's not that picky there. So in this case, we're going with first program. If you take a look in the created file section, you see in this path at the very end, it's stating it's going to put it in our Java intro program or project that we created. And it's going to be called first program.java. So you see here, we did not have to specify .java. If you're using VS Code, you do have to type in .java for it to be a Java file, but in NetBeans, it would automatically do it for you. So next thing we would do is finish. Boom. This is how you create a new file in NetBeans. Just that simple. Go in, click new file, give it a name, make sure it's in the project, and now you see it's under our projects folder. Okay, so yes, there are different folders in here, and these are different things that are pre-installed from the environment to pull in the JDK, to bring in your project files, to bring in the libraries that you need. Basically, it's the built-in stuff that you're going to be working with. So you see these are your primary files, but your Java files will always live in the source packages file. And typically in NetBeans, you will have this here, which is just a labeling mechanism. Again, not going to get deep into that because it's basically just a package or a package of all the code that you're building, and it will name it based off of what you want. In our case, again, we didn't care about it, which is why it's called com.mycompany. But in some cases, you might have a company, you might want to attach it to the name of the company, so that's where that will come into play. So that portion is not a big deal. It's just basically creating a package of your source code or your program code in one location. All right, so now that we covered that, we now have our very first file. You now see that our first program class name is first program. First program is here, first program is here. They match the exact same way. So to give you an example, remember I said that Java is case sensitive. If I were to make this a lowercase p, you see it instantly turns red. It instantly shows this light bulb. If you ever see this, this means there is a problem with your code. That red line is not your friend. That means it's not going to run, so there's no reason for you to try to run your code if you see a red line like that in any case. So basically, when you see errors, you can hover over them and they will tell you exactly what the problem is most of the time. So this is saying class first program is public, which is correct, but it's also saying it should be declared in a file named firstprogram.java. Now, technically, we are in the firstprogram.java file. However, remember Java is case sensitive. So we named our file with a capital P. This class is with a lowercase p, and that is why it is saying it is broken. So either you would have to rename this file to first program with a lowercase p, or you come to the class and change the p to an uppercase p, and that solves your problem. So that's what it means when it says that your class name and your file name have to be the same in Java. And that was also your first intro to errors when coding. So you have to be careful of that. Now, the second part of running your code is remembering that you need your main method. So your main method is what you need to run your code. So to do this, remember, again, case sensitive. So generally when you're working with classes, you want to make sure that your code is indented one line under whatever the previous line was to make it easier to read. So the public class is on back here. So you see our cursor's right here. However, when I come to the new line, just a healthy trick would be first to click tab, and then that will make an indent, and then you can start writing the code you need. So we need our public static void main capital S strings args outside and our curly brace. Okay, so that right there is our main method. That is what you need to remember, and that is exactly how you would type it in for it to work every time. And you see we created main, and if you look down here, it basically shows that you created a main as well inside of the first program. So that's basically saying now your program has a starting point. Now whatever you run or place into the main will be able to be ran by your computer. So those are the first two major portions that you need when creating a file. So right now we technically have a valid Java file that we can start coding in. So you basically cannot start coding in any Java file until this portion is complete. So now that it's done, we can continue to move forward. So now I'm going to cover another concept we covered, which is comments, and that is an example of one right here. This is an example of what you would consider your documentation comments. So here is the documentation. And basically what you want to do in here is say, you know, The author will be whatever your computer name is. Another thing you could do is add date, which I highly recommend because that way you know when you created it, you know things of that nature when you return. So we'll just do a random date and then we'll say program description. This is our first Java program covering the basics. Oops. All right. So this is an example of your documentation comment. So if you were to close your program today and you return to this later, you'll see, okay, I made this program at this date. The program is supposed to be doing this. And it's basically just giving you a reminder of what's happening in your code. So in the documentation, you can see, you can click enter and it will continue on. So you can write paragraphs of stuff. As long as it stays within the asterisks, you'll be fine. So this is if you want to basically document the full thing in full detail. So that's a documentation common example. Your other common example that is typically common is going to be your single line comment, which you do by the 2 slashes. And you see it's kind of grayed out. That means it's going to be ignored when your code is ran. So it is invisible to the compiler. It cannot be used in the code itself if it is in a comment. So we're going to go ahead and do an example of here. So we'll say single line comment example. And we're going to say main method to run program. All right, so that's basically showing us that one, here's a common example, and two, the main method of our program is right here. So again, it's just notes. It's helping you remember what things are and how to work with them. So that is the good thing about them. Now, when it comes to working in your class, again, everything you want to do is going to be in the main. We haven't gotten to the portion where, you can write outside of the main class, which we will. But for now, everything we do is going to be within the main method. So now that we're in the main method, you see that our cursor is blinking and it is indented over. Again, that one tab over idea. Now you can basically start writing any code you want. So that would be using your variables. That would be using your expressions. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. So we're going to use a comment, creating a variable. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and create a variable. So when you're working with numbers, the data type for that variable, or one of them, is int. And int is basically going to be used to hold whole numbers. We'll get a little deeper into that in the next lectures, but I just wanted to bring that up as we're doing it now. So int is a data type for numbers, and we're going to say number 1. And we're going to do our semicolon to end the statement. So adding a comment, we're going to say declaring a variable called number 1. So now we have a variable that we can use in our code. Now, you see that it has this yellow line. Yellow lines are not bad, but they are warnings. So it's basically saying if you hover over there that the variable number 1 is not being read or written to, meaning we basically have not used it yet. We just declared it. Now what we're going to do is initialize our variable, and we're going to give it a value. So we're going to say assigning a value to number 1. Say number 1 you say equals, and then you give it a number of your choice. So we'll say 24. Again, you see, I did not put my semicolon. You see that red line is there. If you hover there, it immediately says a semicolon is expected. So that is what I mean by it's very important. So now we have number 1 equals 24. Okay. So now we're starting to get somewhere. We're getting a little deeper into creating some code. We basically have one variable. Our variable is now holding the value of 24. So you see there, it highlights them both. It's pretty much showing you that they're the same thing, and you can move forward. Now, if you want to print your variable to see what it has, you need to type exactly how I type system.out. And you see, as I click dot, it pretty much shows all of these options in Netbeans. The same format and display doesn't necessarily show up in Visual Studio Code. Again, because we're mainly working with Java, I feel like it's a little better to work from this. But as you see, when you come and start entering things that are pre-built into Java, which in this case, system is pre-built into Java, we're using a library that's already there, already built the tools for us. You see, it gives you different options that you can use. And if you go down the list, it also shows you a description of what it is, what it means, in some cases, how to use them. In our case, we'll be printing, and you see here there are all these different prints statements you can use. In our case, we're going to go with print line, and that is a standard everyday usage of a print statement. And what you do is you come inside of the parentheses, and when you're in the parentheses, that is when you will enter whatever it is that you are trying to print. And in our case, we are trying to print the variable number 1. Now, you see that warning sign has now disappeared because we are now fully using the variable of number 1. So we basically have a program that will run at this point. Now, if I were to take the 1 away, you see instantly now we have a warning sign, now we have a red line. That's because it's saying that there is no variable that exists called number. We did not create one. As soon as we add 1, all of our problems go away. So that is why you have to be careful when you are beginning to code. So we'll go ahead and now run this code. You see here, we have our play button. So we'll go ahead and run our project there by clicking that. It's going to start running. You see it's running all this information here. It's just setting it up. And basically what happened here is it is running 2 different source files. So what's happening in here is it ran the Java intro file. What we're running is the first program.java file. So it basically ran the first project that we did. So I wanted to show you that in case when you get in here and you create new files, you need to pay attention to things like that in Netbeans. It will tell you the file that is running here. So it's saying it's running Java intro, which is this file here. We are currently in first program.java. So our output is here for our Java intro program. So if I head over there, open that up, then you see it said it wanted to print out the word hello world. That is what we see here. So technically what we just ran was not our first program.java file that we want to test. So I wanted to show you that because some people run into that problem because it's running the project. So this little arrow here will show you exactly what is running and what's going to be ran. So in that case, another way to run your file to ensure that you are running the correct file is to right click inside of your program file. So here I'm right clicking, and then you see here it says run file. So you would click it that way. It's going to run the file. And now you see it printed out what our number is, and also it tells us it ran first program. So Right there is simply how we created our first program. We created our first variables. We created our first comments. We created our first main method, and we created our first print statement. So that is the very basics of getting started and creating your first Java file. And in the next coding tutorial, we'll get a little bit deeper into all of these areas. So I will see you in the next video.